But you guys out there on the front lines, we appreciate that, and the extension of the ministry that you do that we aren't involved in. We appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
No. Well, I think our listeners are well acquainted with you. Not only you've come to town a lot of times, but we've done a lot of interviews, so it's probably just like a breath of fresh air for them to hear from you again. We're getting ready for the Dove Awards and a lot of big music. I must say, I missed your listening party of your brand new album.
Oh, wow. It was fun. That was a fine moment for me.
Tell me about, I heard some good things. Beaker was telling me about it, and he's just pumped about it. You know, when I first heard The World is Best I Remember at Volume 1, I can't imagine there even being a Volume 2 of it getting any better. So how is it different and how is it the same?
Well, I think it's the same in that it's kind of like Volume 1 by itself. There are several different musical styles that we kind of go into, and so Volume 1 is different and the same, and Volume 2 is the same in that it's different and it's the same. Am I making sense? This is like this. I keep answering this question and I keep going, no, that's not really true.
That confusing moment brought to you by Rich Mullins.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Probably, I guess what you're saying is that it's unique, it's different, musical styles that are represented are different, but lyrically maybe it's the same. I'm trying to figure him out. That's a scary thing.
Yeah. I would just say, if you liked Volume 1, you will probably like Volume 2. And if you didn't like Volume 1, you may like Volume 2, so go ahead and buy it anyway.
So you can't lose with Volume 2. That's the moral.
You can't lose with Volume 2.
Beaker was saying, maybe I don't want to get too personal here, but Beaker was saying you've got off a long tour. It was a long haul and really kind of draining on you and things like that. Is that the toughest part about doing what you do, being on the road for so long and day in and day out, singing the same songs over and over? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah. And it's weird things about, like, because I really enjoy the performing, but it's weird things like when you get to the place where you're going to play and they're supposed to provide electricity and they didn't, so you can't plug your amps in. And it's things like you have an hour and a half and you go, oh, great, I've got to do my laundry because I'm down to where I've already been buying additional packages of underwear and stuff. So you go, man, I can do my laundry. And you jump in the truck and you take off to find a laundromat. And 50 minutes later, you come across one and you no longer have time to do it. But then you can't find your way back to the hall where you're playing. So you have to find a payphone. And you don't have a quarter. It's just those kinds of... But I kind of go, you know what? I think everybody's lives have a lot of aggravations in them. And that I'm sure that when I'm not touring anymore, I will find something to complain about. That it's a matter of learning to look for what to be thankful for. I'm sure a housewife has a very draining kind of life. I'm sure that secretaries, I'm sure that factory workers, I'm sure that mechanics, we all have those things in our life. And so I think sometimes people think that people who get to travel and perform and stuff never get tired and never feel drained and never get grumpy. And yes, we do, just like everybody else. That should be clear, but it should also be clear that those of us who like to complain about it as if we had a unique situation, that's wrong also,
If that's the most frustrating part of what you do, what's the most gratifying?
Things like when I meet someone and they say, you know what, I brought my husband to your concert and he has accepted the Lord since then and really turned him around. Things like when this lady came running up to me and asked me if we made rain at my concert, and I thought she was going to be mad about, she was going to associate it with the New Age thing or something, and I said, well, yes, we did, and she said, my daughter left the concert when you made rain, and I said, I was ready to go,
right,
well, what's wrong?
Yeah, right.
And she said, no, nothing's wrong, my daughter is hearing impaired, and she had never heard rain before, but because of the proximity of the sounds, when you were making it, she could hear it, and it sounded exactly like what she'd imagined. Things like that, and you go, wow, that's great. Things like going back to the hotel after you've done a concert and realizing that a lot of people are going to bed the same time you are, and they're tired and they're exhausted from doing work that they hate to do. And what a terrific blessing to be able to go to bed tired from doing something that you love to do. That's gratifying for me.
Just to alert the stations to get Boy Like Me, Man Like You queued up. We're going to go into that in just a moment. But anyone who knows your music well knows that you're not an easy artist to put in a box. You're not an easy artist to figure out. Perhaps that's why you're an artist. Do you thrive on maybe doing things different, going into the studio, trying not to just produce another album or another hit song? But is that really motivating to you to know, maybe does it challenge you even more to know that your music doesn't sound like everybody else's?
Yeah, it does.
You enjoy that a little bit?
I'll admit it. I mean, I've heard a lot of people do a lot of weird things for the sake of being weird, and I don't ever want to get into that.
Right.
But for me, it's challenging to say. I think the biggest challenge as a writer and as a performer is not to come up with something different for the sake of being different, but it's the challenge is to not be afraid to try things that other people maybe haven't tried because they were afraid. And so I think courage is the hardest thing to cultivate, and the courage to go ahead and do something even though it sounds like it's going to be stupid. Like the cup thing we do in concert.
Right.
I mean, that's still, people still, everywhere I go, oh, you did the cups, that was so great. And I go, oh, I'm so tired of that. And why doesn't someone else do it? Because, it's just a lot of people would never do that. Why? I don't know. Maybe because they think it's stupid. I think it's stupid, but I also think that people enjoy it.
Right.
I think all the best things in life are stupid.
We want to talk about the song Boy Like Me, Man Like You, but first, maybe get real philosophical very briefly. What do you think your biggest or most major accomplishment is or has been?
I think that if I can be obedient to God, that would be the greatest accomplishment.
Tell us about the song Boy Like Me, Man Like You before we hear it.
It just came out of Beaker and I talking about trying to... I can't remember exactly how the whole conversation went. It was a conversation that lasted about 3 days, but we were talking about the apostles and what it would be like to be one of the apostles and try to understand that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, that he was the only begotten, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're basically you're wrestling there with the doctrine of the incarnation. And then we were talking about Mary and how weird it would be for her. And then we were talking about, okay, I wonder if Jesus had any friends when he was a kid. And what would it be like to be his friend? And what would it be like to have him in class with you? And out of all of that, we ended up coming around to Boy Like Me, Man Like You. And also, I mean, one of the things that I think really hit us was that it seems wonderful that God, who is from eternity to eternity, should come and dwell in time, and that he who is spirit should become flesh. But even wilder than that is that once we were nothing, and we were made. And the fact that we're given the opportunity to live however briefly we get to live, kind of wonderful. And life is something that I hope we can be grateful for.
Here's Rich Mullins. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Boy Like Me, Man Like You on 104.9 FM WCBW.